This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
But I'll tell you, and we've joked about it on the show, and I even said it last week, you know, if cats have 9 lives, Jarrett's have 10. I want to set the stage, and we're going to get super personal here, but you're comfortable with it. October 26th, 2017, it's reported that you've checked into WWE sponsored rehab. It was reported at the time that you showed up to a Real Canadian Wrestling show in Calgary 3 hours later, and you had passed out backstage and ended up in no position to wrestle. And boy, this is just an ugly moment in time. And it comes 1 week after it seems like you were removed from Impact Wrestling, announcing you're no longer a part of the company, and the Global Force rebrand was not happening. This is, there's a lot of peaks in Jeff Jarrett's life. There's a few valleys. This has to be one of them. And who would have thought, man, just right around the corner. Look how, woof, quite a story here, is it not?
Oh, the Grand Weaver. God works in mysterious ways, and this was absolutely one of them. You talked about peaks and valleys, and we've covered a lot of them on the podcast in your eloquent way. But without question, the absolute low point of my professional career. Embarrassing, humiliating. You referenced passed out backstage. A lot of folks may or may not be aware, but there's a term used called blackout drunk.
Yeah.
So that means you can be on your feet, talking, walking, maybe not with complete dexterity, but that was a situation. Conrad, I was a mess. It was a mess. Some folks know, some folks don't. I had gone to 6 weeks prior to this. It's called IOP, intensive outpatient treatment. So I hadn't had any alcohol in my system for 6 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks. Got on a plane, headed up to Calgary, made the first flight just fine. Didn't even think about it. Second flight delayed, another delayed, not an excuse, just kind of recounting the story. And that was the beginning of the end when the wonderful airline stewardess said in seat 2A, I have the boarding pass, Conrad. Can I get you anything? We got to get a drinks in before we take off. And I didn't, truly out of reaction, gave her my drink order. And that was the beginning of my last drunk, as they say. So Conrad, it was a mess. Calgary, supposed to go up to Edmonton the following day. There was a immigration something about, but I think that actually worked in my favor because I got back on the plane the following morning, Saturday morning, flew back to Minneapolis, and I was a mess until I made the decision. I'll say that. I don't want to get too far ahead. So Conrad.
No, this is good stuff because, you know, if we're honest, nobody ever talks about this in wrestling. Everybody wants to just say, well, he had his demons, and then we quickly move on. But you're, you know, a shining example of what's possible. And, you know, you're comfortable talking about it. So let's talk about it. You kept your boarding pass?
Yep.
You still have it?
Yep.
Because it was important to remember this was the moment, right?
So, man, we were going to get into it, and I hope I treat this subject with complete respect and, you know, anonymity and everything, but it's my story.
Yeah.
But there is a philosophy, if you will, that I was taught and I listened, that I should remember as much as I humanly possible can remember about the darkest time.
Yeah.
You don't remember it. We have quick forgetters and forget.
It. Yeah.
You repeat it and you go back down that dark hole again. So, yeah, it's something that I could probably I could remember. I remember much more than I'll share today because it gets into the details. But it was a really ugly 4-day situation, and I say 4-day: Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, until I made the decision. But yes, Conrad, that's part. You know me well enough now. It's part of my OCD. So text messages, I answer. I remember.
Well, I think it's cool that you kept it though, because there's these major moments in our lives where you could go left or you could go right. And you made the right decision here, and you held on to that to always remember that, I assume, but I didn't know that until you just shared that. And we talk pretty regular. I mean, I talk to you more than most anybody. And the idea that I didn't know that is pretty cool. And we talked about how it was a low point professionally. And I know we're not going to get into all the impact and global force stuff, but needless to say, that didn't work out as well as planned. But as often the case with anytime addiction rears its ugly head, it doesn't just affect you from 9 to 5. This had to be less than awesome for the home life too, right?
24/7. Just some real quirky, wacky stuff. But they often refer to it as, I was a walking, talking, breathing tornado. And sometimes you're in the eye of it. Sometimes you get caught up in the peripheral. Sometimes you'll have a really bad 24, 36 hours. And then you come, the back wind of it. Oh man, it's a bright sunny day, but needless to say, it consumed my life. I was the guy that got up at 5:30 and drank alcohol before I went to Gold's Gym, the same Gold's Gym I go to today. So it is as we're getting into this, and I wasn't real sure.
Hang on. Your pre-workout was rum and Dr. Pepper?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, that's how, so just to give you my viewpoint, and this is my viewpoint, others share it, others don't. I believe the disease of addiction is truly a disease. It affects the brain. And the part of the brain that it affects is the decision-making part. And so 1 in 9 people, if you want to play the numbers game, have the gene of addiction. And if you're one of those 9, and out of those, take that group, and now you've got a new group over here, only 1 in 9 of that group actually treat it. So I feel, we talk about cat of 9 lives and all that kind of stuff. I feel blessed that I've treated it. But that being said, yes, just insane. It's truly insane. You're insane. I was insane, making insane. Who in their right mind, not me, would drink a alcoholic drink and then go do cardio?
I've never heard of that before in my life.
It's truly insanity.
Like the part of your brain that does that clearly prioritizes health because you're going to work out, but then right before, well, let's just make it as hard as we can. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
It's crazy. It really is truly insanity.
I want to ask this, and you know me in real life, I want to ask this as respectfully as I can. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to open anything up here. I just want to ask a question. And the question is, do you think that your circumstance, not in general, let me time out and back it up. A lot of wrestlers sometimes blame the lifestyle or the industry of being a professional wrestler and being on the road. They point to that and say, well, this is the reason this happened to me. And others would say, no, I think it was more of a genetic thing. And I'm not asking specifically, did your dad or did your grandma or did your grandpa or whatever, but do you think this was more, the disease of addiction was more inherited genetically, or it was a learned behavior that became the disease because you were in wrestling? Or is it option C?
What is option C?
Something else that I don't know.
I was going to give you option C. I think it's, look, there is a lot of folks, and I won't name names, that have drank for years, and in my opinion, and others too, that's called a heavy drinker.
Yeah.
They don't, disease of addiction is a allergy of the body, an obsession of the mind. I'm sure folks that have been out there, you've been around somebody that may or may not, or may be allergic to peanuts. They're on a plane, you can't eat peanuts. They're at the dinner table. When somebody eats a peanut and they're allergic to it, their windpipe expands rapidly and they can literally die on the spot. That's an allergy. So if you have the disease and you put that alcohol and you're an allergy, you start making bad decisions. But the obsession part of it, there's a lot of folks I talk to folks all the time. They never were obsessed with it. So me taking a drink before I go to the gym, that categorizes into obsession. So I believe that I was born with it, but I made the decision, and I take full responsibility that I'm the one who said, hey man, I've wrestled 18 nights in a row or 3 nights in a row. I deserve a drink. That's all an excuse. My mind can rationalize. There's 3 words that I have learned over the last 4 or 5 years that has changed my life in a lot of ways: rationalize, justify, or minimize. I can do that with any situation. If I do that with any situation, I get in trouble. If I take a step back and go, no, wait a minute, I'm the one who made that decision. Now, today I made the decision not to do that. So
I love that. And I appreciate that we're having this talk, because I do think this is an important piece of the story, because without this, I don't know that we get where we are, right?
Not I just believe in a higher power, in God, in divine guidance. It's all a part of my story. Had I not had that 4-day bad bender, I can't say that I would or wouldn't, but it absolutely led me to the path to say enough is enough. And Karen looked at me sitting in that easy chair that I still have downstairs, Conrad, that you've sat in, and like, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to treatment. Now, I don't know why I said that.
It was your idea, not her idea.
Look, she encouraged me, and you know Karen well, so encouraged me or dog cuss me or a little bit of everything in between. This is out of hand, this is that, and then, you know, go through a period of time like a lot of folks do. She's the only one that truly would say, hey, of course she's my, you know, we're married. She's my wife, but like, Jeff, enough. And then, like a lot of people in relationship, be a good little boy, and then back again, and a good little boy and back again. But yeah, so it was a really rough time. And she looked at me. And then when I said, go to treatment, that put the wheels in motion for her. She hammered down.
She got busy and started making it happen.
Bruce and Road Dogg. Those were the calls. Bing, bing. And they put the wheels in motion.
Bruce wasn't even with WWE at the time.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
So you got to remember, Bruce, and you know, shout out to Conrad and Save with, something to wrestle with. You know that Bruce was a part of the Global Force and the you know, the rebrand and all that. And Bruce they had known each other, but Bruce producing Karen, they had a good relationship. And during that, I'm going to go ahead and say this, during that 4-day bender is when, before the treatment discussion had taken place, Karen called Bruce and Bruce called you, and you said, hey,
I'll go get him. Yeah.
I'll go get him. So, you know, full disclosure, we're getting into the weeds here, but yeah, that was, you know, Bruce knew the machine.
Bruce, just to add context, Bruce is in Texas and at the time, and you guys are 2 hours from my house.
Right.
So when he was like, man, I don't know what to do about Jeff. And I said, well, fuck, I'll go get him.
Yep.
Like, you and I had only met each other a couple of times, but I felt like if Karen was calling Bruce, that was her saying, hey, I need some help. I need some male help. And I'm like, well, I'll go do it. 2 hours. Let's go.
And she knew, okay, to back up even, because I've even thought, look, she knew me and Road Dogg's relationship, and he was, I don't say on the other side, but he was an employee. Bruce was Switzerland, if you will.
Yes.
He had a relationship with them, but, you know, wasn't all that. He also, Karen knew when I called the phone, picked up the phone and called Bruce and said, I need help creatively. Can you come help? She saw a different side of, oh, Jeff really respects this Bruce guy, you know, all that. So what you just said, hey, I need some help. Get somebody in here that Jeff's ass will listen to.
Yeah. Well, thankfully it worked. And you do go have treatment and come out of treatment. And I know you're up early doing cardio, doing some reading, looking up some fun quotes and inspirational quotes and getting your mind right for the day. And you're Mr. Positive Mental Attitude, but coming out of all of that. And so now it's like, now what? Right.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at savewithconrad.com.